Hey guys, welcome to Wrestling Daze and welcome to this What Do You Think About video. I gotta tell you, this is a really difficult one for me because I don't really use Dave Meltzer much. I do think that he's got a great wrestling mind, but when it comes to specifics, it's very difficult for me to talk because I don't really go onto his Twitter account much. I don't read The Observer. I do like to go onto the Wrestling Observer radio just to get a different perspective. So I will listen to him and Brian Alvarez sometimes. Certainly if he's reporting something, I'll be interested to, see what he's saying. But obviously, I think a lot of us now kind of take that with a pinch of salt because there have been mistakes and things that he's been wrong about. But you are going to get that with wrestling journalism. Plans do change. Obviously, you can't really use that as an excuse. And to be honest with you, I just don't understand why he even needs to do that side of things. Why not report on what has happened rather than trying to tell us what's going to happen, right? He's entitled to have his opinion, but I think his opinion should be really presented very clearly as, this is just my opinion, this is where I think this is going. And I do feel sorry for him because sometimes I see these channels on X kind of reporting Dave's opinions as fact. Like Dave has said, this is going to happen. But when you actually watch the clip, he didn't. He said he thinks this is going to happen. It's not that he was told. So I do think there's a lot of what he says that gets taken out of context. So, yeah, I feel sorry for him. And I think my big takeaway, what I really would say is the number one thing for me is that the temperature is way too high. I mean, honestly, it feels like we're in an oven. It is that hot. It feels like we're inside an oven. I really feel like we've got to turn this temperature down, man. He hasn't killed anyone, right? He's not the devil. He's just a guy with information that's sometimes off and star ratings that people sometimes, a lot of times, disagree with, right? I think he does favor AEW. He has come out and sort of said that they're more to his style of wrestling that he enjoys. So he has kind of come out and said as such. I know that's, maybe not brilliant for someone that's a journalist and you could say should be impartial, but it is also human nature. We do enjoy what we enjoy. If he goes to a show and he just finds himself enjoying a certain show more, that just is life, isn't it? I mean, I don't know that I can really blame him for that. If I had to be a journalist and go and watch, I don't know, GC Dub or CZ Dub or all of these kind of indie shows, I don't know that I would be enjoying that as much as I do WWE. So I find that really difficult, to be honest. I suppose if you can't stay impartial, you could then say, well, why do the star ratings? But I don't think the star ratings were really ever meant to be as big as they became. The star ratings sort of became like, this is it. This is the gospel. This is what Dave Meltzer has said. He kind of got to the point where he was the guy. Like what Dave said was really listened to. And I think that has now massively blown up in his face because he does prefer AEW. He's given them way more 5-star rating matches. Matches which for me don't even belong at 4.5 stars or 4.25. He's given 5 stars to. And so you can understand people then just going, well, the whole rating system's a load of nonsense, isn't it? And I think that has caused backlash. So I just think the temperature is way too high. It's way too high. It's not that serious. Turn it down. But I would love to sit down with Dave Meltzer and go, listen, stop responding to the trolls. If you are someone that analyzes the wrestling business, start posting more about that. WrestleNomics are putting out graphs. They're putting out really interesting information. Try and start doing more of that. Like maybe the time you spend replying to trolls could be better spent on something more constructive, because I don't think you're ever going to change people's minds by arguing with them. Right? If you get into an argument with someone, they're probably just going to dig their heels in even more. I don't know that you'll change people's minds that way. I think he has been wrong on stuff. I know the AFA passing is going to get brought up. The only thing I'd say is I'm quite fortunate in that I'm online a lot. So I got to see that whole thing play out. And I think it was Afa's son, certainly a member of the family, that posted something about Afa and about how he's going to open up a wrestling school in heaven. He's going to be reunited with lost family members and old friends, and how he'll see old friends again. And the whole theme of this post was that Afa had passed away. Didn't categorically say it, but the whole theme of it was very much he was gone. And a lot of people put posts out saying R.I.P. Afa, rest in peace, condolences to the family, right? Lots of big IWC accounts. Dave Meltzer obviously was one as well. I think he gets held up to a higher standard, which is probably a good thing for him. And I think he should have checked with the family first, but I'm sure he's kind of kicking himself on that as well, to be honest. It's one of those where I don't know that he was really thinking too much about it. I think he was maybe, you know, researching something for The Observer, doing some other stuff, saw all over Twitter this news was breaking, saw the post from the family, which was quite, you know, cryptic, suggestive, and so he just went with it, and he turned out to be wrong, right? What's interesting about that is that I think people made up their minds about Dave long before that, and that is now being used as a stick to kind of beat him with, even though I don't think like it really changed anyone's mind. I don't know that people like loved Dave and then the Afa thing happened and now they hate him. I think if you hate Dave, it's a good thing to now beat him with, to go, you got that wrong, and now you can beat him with that. So I don't know that it changed anyone's minds. I don't know that it really did much in that regards. Yes, he sort of should have checked, but I think people had made their minds up long before that. I mean, look, I'm not a Dave Meltzer, you know, defender, if you will, but I'm someone that has respect for Dave because I think he's watched wrestling for like 50, 60 years. He will forget more about wrestling than most of us will ever know. Even Jim Cornette was a subscriber to The Observer up until 2019. It was only when AEW started, and I think that really changes everything for Dave. It was only when AEW started and this tribalism really, you know, went to a whole different level that it kind of looked like Dave had picked the AEW sides. And I think if you weren't on that AEW sides, Meltzer was dead to you then. That was it. I hate this guy. Add in the fact that he was full of praise for him because I think it is what he favors. And, you know, I think this is where we've ended up You can sprinkle in a bit of misinformation. Eric Bischoff and Bruce Pritchard have come out and pointed out a few things that were just not accurate from the past as well. And, you know, I just think we're in a bit of a bad situation now. So I would like to see the temperature turn down, but I would like Dave to kind of change his approach, really. You know, I don't know how long Dave's going to keep going for. I mean, he's already in his mid-60s. He's already at a retirement age. But I think there's real value in him just focusing on the past, doing, like, you know, roundups and putting out posts about wrestlers and everything that we know. Because, you know, he reads a lot of books. I think he is very knowledgeable. I think he does know a lot of stuff. So rather than speculating about the future and getting fed information which may ultimately prove to be incorrect, why not just focus on the 50-odd years of stuff that you do know? And why not just review the shows and base it against all the other thousands of shows that you've seen? I think there's still value to his star ratings, but maybe he could make it a bit clearer that he knows this is not the gospel, that this is not the be-all and end-all. I think there are definitely shifts in presentation that I think could be made. So, yeah, I don't have any negative feelings towards Dave Meltzer. I actually feel really sorry for Dave Meltzer. I think the temperature is way too high. And I'm very interested to know what you lot are going to say, actually. I know that was a big intro, but I do have a lot to say on this one, because I think with Kevin Owens, there isn't the same emotion involved. With CM Punk, there's not the same emotion involved. I don't know when we'll do a video like this where the temperature is as hot as what it is for this one, which makes this one of the harder videos to do, to be honest. So Let's see what people are saying. We'll take this step at a time. We're going to stick around for the 20 minutes still. Don't worry. I know that was a long intro. We're going to go a bit longer than usual as a result. So Sam thinks that he's a liar. He said the ratings are stupid. I'm guessing he means the star ratings, right? And they seem to be against women the majority of time, but I can't say for certain. The only thing I'd say about that is that when it comes to 5 stars, I think Manami Toyota has been awarded like amongst the most 5-star matches. So I don't know that he specifically has a problem with women's wrestling, because the fact he's awarded Manami Toyota so many 5 stars would suggest that's not the case. But I don't know. That's for him to answer, isn't it? He reported on the death of Afa, got it wrong, didn't apologize. We did touch on that. Reports are guesswork and mostly inaccurate. I don't know if that's true. I don't know what his hit rate's like. I don't know what his success rate is like. You'd have to go back through everything he's said, and we'd have to see if it came true or not, right? So I don't know. But I think the perception for a lot of people is that needs to be banished from wrestling and reporting as a whole. That feels a little bit too emotionally charged, I think. So a couple of bits there I would like to dig into with Sam and like kind of flesh out a little bit more. But I don't think what Sam has said there is like a million miles away from how some people feel about Dave. Kim's Train said, I think he's okay. I do think sometimes his ratings are a bit strange, but maybe because he has a wider range of companies to choose from, and not just 2, meaning he has a more diverse choice of matches, and that can upset some fans. Yeah. Aaron said, I respect Dave. Yes, people don't like his star ratings, but who cares what one guy says? Wrestling is for everyone, except for the ones that hate watch. I wouldn't trust him more than, say, Fightful, but I would listen to him, says Aaron. Mitchell said, and this is interesting from Mitchell, I don't really understand why someone tagged Dave in Mitchell's quotes, right? But Dave actually responds to this one. So we're going to read what Mitchell says, and we're going to see what Dave responds with, right? So I respect him as a wrestling historian. His credibility is really bad. So what I would say is that I think that's fair and reflective, to be honest. I also respect him as a wrestling historian. I also think his credibility has took a real hit since AEW came along, right? He also never apologizes or takes ownership when he gets something wrong. The Afa thing, I think, was a big one recently, of course. Going back before that, I don't know. I would struggle for example. So I don't know how true that is outside of the Afa thing, but maybe Mitchell knows of more examples. I also hate that he decided to become AEW's shield bearer, and I think there is a big perception of that. As a journalist, you are supposed to be unbiased. So, as we said, this was really interesting because Dave responded, okay? And Dave said, so you don't read, okay? Now, forget this is Mitchell, right? It's irrelevant because I've just gone through that and said, I agree with this, I'm not sure about this, blah, 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 right? So at this point, Dave might as well be kind of talking to all of us. I think Dave, I understand where Dave's coming from. I'm sure the majority of his thoughts are inside the Observer. But in 2024, and certainly when you are as active on Twitter as what Dave is, and you're also making appearances on Wrestling Observer Radio, which is all over YouTube, I think Dave needs to understand, and I'm sure he does, that he is multimedia. He is someone that you can't really use the defense of so you don't read the Observer, because he's everywhere. He's on social media, he's on YouTube, he's in videos. Yes, there's the Observer as well, and I get that's the key thing. But I don't know that you can really use that as a line of defense when you are putting out so much content outside of the Observer. But this is why I just don't think he should be interacting with trolls on his Twitter, right? Because I think you can easily read those exchanges and not get much from them and just sort of leave it at that. And then anything he does post, which is of interest, can sort of just get lost in the shuffle. So his tone may have changed. I genuinely don't know. I don't read the Observer, and I dip in and out of Wrestling Observer Radio, and I'll have a glance at his Twitter account. But as I said, a lot of the time, all I'm seeing is him interacting with trolls. So maybe there are more answers in the Observer, but in 2024, I don't know that that's the right response. He said, I've been so much more critical of AEW than WWE, starting just before WWE started growing. And that's a couple of years ago now. And AEW attendances started falling. So he's saying that his narrative shifted a few years ago, maybe when Triple H took over and Vince was gone, and his narrative shifted as we started to see AEW falling. He says, my job is business analysis. When AEW was growing, of course, my job was to explain why. So I feel like if that is true, what he said there, and that's how he feels, I feel like there is a bit of a disconnect, because I just think there is so much noise around, and maybe the fact he amplifies that noise by replying to trolls makes things worse, that maybe there is truth here, but I don't know that it has punched through. I don't know that it's punched through. Either way, I don't want people to read that and go, no, that's rubbish, load of lies, blah, 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 blah. I mean, if you feel that way, fine. But my big point in this video is I think we really do need to lower the temperature. The temperature's way too high. And I do agree that at times Dave doesn't help himself, but I do feel sorry for Dave. I do feel sorry for Dave. I've kind of seen his journey, if you will, and to see where we are in 2024. I know he doesn't help himself, but I do feel sorry for Dave. So, Mitchell, shout out to you. I don't think Mitchell's worried or bothered about Dave responding to his comment. He shouldn't be. I think that it was a very interesting response by Dave, and, you know, it allows us to see a different perspective. So, I suppose really, if I was Mitchell, I'd be quite pleased that I'd got a response from Dave, and that we got to hear, you know, to know that he had read my comment, how I honestly felt, and then to see his response. I actually think that's pretty cool. Janie said, I always find him to be a bitter old man that is trying to make himself relevant. His rating system is heavily flawed and not something to be looked at as gospel. Well, I agree. I don't think even he thinks it should be looked at as gospel, because it's just one person's opinion of something that's subjective. Not everyone will like the same things in wrestling. That's true. Male Tail Thong said, I don't like or dislike Dave, but I do think he has dropped the ball a few times of late. The Triple H and Rock video that was a decade old and he thought was recent, even though Triple H had his hair back then. Plus, I am still waiting for that surprise segment at WrestleMania 40. Word of Wrestling said, I'm very late to the party. I think Meltzer more lately need to take what he says with a pinch of salt. He clearly has his favourite show, which is AEW, which does affect my opinion on his views on some of the matches in WWE. The man's very knowledgeable, but not the best. I understand what you're saying there, right? I suppose what my counter to that would be, forget AEW, right? Just ignore his ratings for it. Don't look at them. Don't engage in them. Like, I have no interest in how he scores AEW, right? Just look at how he scores WWE. Because if he scores a match at, say, SummerSlam 4.5 stars, I think it's quite interesting to look at that and then compare to how he scored the matches at WrestleMania. Because then you can see some matches that are around the same and you can look and go, was that the same as that? Was that a little better than that? Was that a little bit worse than that? You can sort of compare and contrast yourself, but by comparing WWE to WWE. So I think there is still value in just looking at his WWE ratings, because he's comparing a product that he's not as keen on to a product he's not as keen on. It's the same company, WWE and WWE. I think if you compare his WWE ratings to his AEW ratings, that's where you're going to drive yourself insane, right? That's where I think you're going to have a meltdown. Ethan said, I despise him. He's nothing but a kiss ass to Tony. His opinions are very partial and he gives false information. Austin said, I honestly can't dislike him or like him. I don't really know him. From what I've seen, it looks like he favors AEW, which is nothing wrong with that. My thought is, though, he should be honest and equal for all the promotions, but that's my opinion. Dog Lover said, I dislike him due to him being negative towards everything that's not from the Tokyo Dome or AEW. I feel like he sucks up to AEW because he has got friends there, the Young Bucks. I reached the conclusion when I first heard about him a few years back, and I've heard he is really negative, says Dog Lover and Cody Fan. I mean, I think he does have friends in AEW, like people that he got to know through New Japan and maybe even before that, you know, when they were on the kind of more independent scene, Ring of Honor and everything. And maybe that does kind of, you know, take away his impartiality. I suppose for me, it doesn't matter because I don't read what he says about AEW. Like, if he was to praise AEW and say it's the greatest thing that's ever existed and every match they have is 5 stars, I wouldn't even know because I don't read it. I do look to see what he says about WWE because that's my interest. That's what I'm interested in. So what he says about AAA, what he says about CMLL, what he says about Noah, I'm not interested. And I feel like AEW is exactly the same. It all fits into that bracket. I'm either interested in it, I want to know what he's going to say, or I'm not interested in it. And I think if more people was to take that approach, I think you would maybe enjoy his work a little bit more. But, you know, I'm not trying to make people do that. You know, as I said, this isn't a rah-rah pro Dave Meltzer video, but I am just trying to make sure we keep the temperature at an acceptable level, you know? This is one of those videos that I think could massively get out of control, and I'm not looking for that. Right, OTC said, I don't like Dave Meltzer. He's very delusional. He's a kiss ass to Tony Khan and AEW. He is partial towards AEW. Colton said he's got his favorites. You can tell by the ratings he gives out. Big time favorites are the Bucks and Kenny. And here, recently, with him being wrong on so many things, it just looks bad on his behalf. He also spouts BS and is biased. I think that is the perception, to be honest. I think that is the perception that a good number of people have. And I think he's going to have to really work hard to... I don't know if he's going to even try, to be honest. I don't know how much he even cares, but it would be nice to see that perception sort of change, you know? But you can't change it by now being fake. You can't start saying that WWE is the greatest thing since sliced bread because people just won't believe that. So I think it's going to be very difficult for him to change that perception. Maybe he just has to get more statistic-focused, fact-focused. A lot like WrestleNomics. You know, they just don't tend to give opinion so much. They are putting out spreadsheets, you know, quarter-hour breakdowns and, you know, stuff like that. WWE Ethan said, I don't care about him. I didn't even know he existed until last year. Harry is not a fan. Matt has said, using the Meltzer rating system, I give him -2 stars. Feels like WWE people might be occasionally feeding him false information to ruin his credibility, and I love it. His online presence is cringe, and he is inconsistent with his interpretation of statistics for TV. I'd like to dig into that last line a little bit more. I think that would be interesting. I do think his arguing on Twitter has hurt him as well. I agree. I think that's probably what we're talking about. Ron said, I like him. He is reliable. He just received info that was wrong at the time. He thought it was real, not knowing that it would be real later. It's not his fault. So I think that's really interesting from Ron, because that feels like we're talking about the AFA news. And that AFA mistake was obviously a well-publicized mistake. But I do feel like people had made their minds up well before that. It's a shame, actually, that we're not doing this video before the AFA thing, because I think the AFA thing is an easy grab right now. But before that, what were the issues? What were the specific issues? I like that one earlier that was mentioned about the Triple H Rock video. I do remember there being some confusion around that. Tall Guy said, yes, Dave is a massive idiot, but let me ask everyone, what does a 5-star match do to the wrestler's bankroll, their expenses? Is a 5-star match going to get their place or to a home? The answer is no. Anyone who listens to him is a sheep. So, that kind of went down some roads I wasn't expecting. So you're saying about how the 5-star match, it doesn't change anything. If someone gets a 5-star match, they ain't going to get a bigger house as a result. And if you listen to him, you're just a sheep. I don't know how to break that down, to be honest. I don't know how to break that down. Storm said, some of the reports are straight up lies and false. His match ratings get way more attention than they deserve. Although I do understand what he has done for wrestling. I feel his cons outweigh the pros when it comes to it. Al said he is biased towards certain wrestlers and styles, but that's just my opinion. I thought being a journalist, there should be an unbiased view. Deadman Talking said, Dave drives me to insanity trying to decipher what he's trying to say. Between that and him making multiple predictions, so at times, no matter how things work out, he has a high percentage to say he was correct. He reminds me of a sideshow palm reader than a journalist. Okay. It'd be good, again, get some examples. I suppose this is where we struggle when you can only have like one comment per person. Billy said he's overstepped the mark announcing a death without consent. That was a poor decision and I won't read his stuff anymore. I know it's hard as he'll want to be the first for news, but he could have done it a different way. But even at that way the wrestlers speak about him is poor. I'd be interested to know if Billy was on board with him before that, or if that really, I mean, you know, was you a reader of his stuff and that has just completely, you know, was you on board with him and now after that you're done? Do you know about this? I think it was Samu that put that post out that was quite cryptic. Do you know that there was other people that put posts out that sent their condolences? Do you know that Dave was not the only one? Do you know why Dave did that? If you know all of that and that is how you feel, I think that's interesting. I think that's interesting. Certainly if you was on board with him before and that one thing is enough for you to go no, I think that's interesting. Right, let's try and get a few more, shall we? So HFNH said something about him screams bias, especially when it comes ratings towards WWE, AEW, New Japan. I'm not normally someone who's passionate about star ratings, but when you compare most of WWE's to AEW's, you can see where I'm coming from. I believe he has come out and said he prefers the AEW products, but that's why I would never recommend anyone doing that, because you're not really comparing like for like. You know, you're comparing apples and oranges. I mean, you're just comparing two different things. I think if you do that, then a lot of this video, I understand. But I would really recommend you don't do that, because I don't think you can compare them in that way. Wow, this is longer than I thought it was going to be. So here, that Jeff Delaney said he's a guy that can show up to the party that no one invited. He can spoil the end of a movie. I've blocked him every turn because I like to enjoy the surprise element of wrestling instead of being constantly disappointed. I think that's an interesting point. What value does he bring to people in 2024? Do you know, but this isn't Dave. You know, I would say the same about WrestleVotes. You know, I find that WrestleVotes put in a tweet out like an hour before SmackDown telling you what's about to happen. Like, I don't get why people would be interested in that. I understand if it's months in advance, like, you know, Julia's signed or Stephanie Vacour's signed or stuff like that. I can understand that. I still wish that didn't happen, to be honest. But yeah, I could understand this approach of, well, I don't care for his star ratings because I think he's biased. I don't need to know what's going to happen in advance because I'd rather just watch the show. This is maybe why him looking at the business, looking at the numbers, doing what WrestleNomics do, looking at the past, doing great write-ups of, say, AFA. You know, he'll do a great write-up of, like, AFA and what the wild Samoans meant to wrestling. And even, as I said, Jim Cornette has been full of praise of those. Jim Cornette said some of the best issues of The Observer are the ones when someone has passed away. because it's so well researched, and you know, it's kind of like reading a little book, a little biography all about the person with some really good insight. So maybe he should just focus on that. Maybe that is what he should do more so than trying to do the whole spoiler thing, you know. I don't disagree with that. Right, we're going to move on to the last couple. So Paul said he's an intelligent guy who knows a lot about the wrestling business. He is blinded by the indie darling wrestling, and he doesn't judge WWE fairly. He's under the AEW umbrella, not officially, but he clearly gives advice to Tony with booking, and his star ratings are clearly biased. Chalky White said, so many false reports over the years, I take no notice of him now. Vento Box said his bias towards AEW has completely killed any journalist integrity he had left. I can't take his reporting seriously when I know he has an agenda towards one company compared to the others. And here's Mert, who said Meltzer is a liar. He is a biased journalist, which more power to him. I guess whatever, but he's very smug and disrespectful. Take the AFA situation. He tried to ruin careers and shiz on people who are actually really good, like Trick Williams. His opinions suck. Well, there we go. I didn't want it to sort of descend into what it descended into. I really was not looking for that. The temperature, as I said, on this just seems too high. Definitely needs turning down. I mean, it seems like he's killed someone or like done something of that magnitude, which I personally just I don't feel anywhere near the same level of anger as a lot of people in the community. I don't know. I hope there's a way forwards. I hope there's a way forwards. I hope we can find a way of repackaging. I hope that we can find a way of bringing some positivity back to this subject. And I think we can. I think there's a way. But I do also think there needs to be a bit of a shift in presentation, in communication. And I don't know, in his mid-60s, is that something that Dave is going to be interested in doing? Does Dave even care about how he's perceived? I genuinely don't know. If he doesn't, more power to him, to be honest. But if he does, then there's always a way forward, of course, you know? So, I don't know. Yeah, difficult video, to be honest. This turned into one which maybe I should have anticipated would be this negative, but I thought there would be a bit more of a mixed bag, if I'm being honest. So, listen, it is what it is. I asked for your honest thoughts. You gave that, and I appreciate that. So, thanks a lot for watching. We'll try and come back with something a bit more positive in the future. And hopefully I see you again next time. Bye for now.